Have you ever noticed how someone can feel warm, present, even deeply connected one moment, and then after intimacy, something changes? Not loudly, not obviously, just a quiet emotional distance that makes you question everything. This isn't random, and it's not always about you doing something wrong. Because for some people, intimacy doesn't just mean physical closeness. It triggers emotional exposure they weren't fully prepared for. So what looks like going cold is often a psychological shift happening internally, fast, confusing, and sometimes even automatic. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of it, you know the feeling. You're left replaying conversations, analyzing tone changes, wondering when exactly things started to feel different. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people miss. After intimacy, some people don't move closer. They move inward. And if you don't understand why that happens, you'll keep personalizing something that was never fully about you. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something small but important. If you've ever experienced someone becoming distant after intimacy, or you've noticed yourself doing it, comment, "I've seen this" below. Because this pattern is far more common than people admit, and your experience matters in understanding it. Now let's break it down properly. The emotional shock after closeness. Intimacy changes psychological proximity. Before intimacy, connection often builds on anticipation. There's curiosity, emotional pacing, and a sense of controlled vulnerability. People can manage how much of themselves they reveal. But intimacy removes some of that buffer. And for certain individuals, that moment creates an internal emotional echo. Not pleasure alone, but vulnerability exposure. Psychologically, this can activate what's known as post-intimacy emotional recalibration. The brain starts reassessing, did I reveal too much? Was I too exposed? What does this mean about my attachment? Even if the experience was consensual and positive, the nervous system can interpret closeness as loss of control. And when people feel emotionally exposed, one of the fastest protective responses is distance. Not because they don't care, but because they're trying to regain emotional stability. The attachment style factor. Now we need to talk about something deeper: attachment patterns. People who go cold after intimacy often fall into one of two internal patterns. One, avoidant leaning responses. These individuals value emotional independence highly. They can enjoy connection, but only up to the point where it doesn't feel consuming. After intimacy, closeness can feel intensified, and intensity can register as pressure. So their system responds by creating space. Slower replies, emotional withdrawal, reduced affection, not as punishment, but as regulation. 2. Fear-activated ambivalence. Some people actually crave closeness deeply, but they also fear dependency. So when intimacy happens, it creates a psychological conflict. I wanted this versus now I feel too seen. That contradiction often results in emotional confusion, followed by distancing as a way to reset internal balance. This is why the shift feels sudden to the other person. It's not always planned, it's reactive. The identity disruption effect. There's another layer people rarely talk about. Intimacy doesn't just connect two bodies, it can temporarily blur emotional boundaries. And for some individuals, that creates an identity disruption moment. Meaning, they start asking themselves, sometimes unconsciously, what does this mean about me? Am I attached now? Do I lose independence if I stay close? This internal questioning can create discomfort that doesn't show up as sadness, but as detachment. So instead of processing it with words, they process it with behavior. They go quiet, emotionally distant, or inconsistent. To the other person, it feels like rejection. But internally, it feels like self-repair. The misconception that makes it worse. Here's where most people get stuck. They assume, if they went cold, I must have done something wrong. So they start over-texting, over-explaining, or emotionally chasing clarity. But here's the paradox. The more one person chases closeness, the more the other person who is regulating distance pulls back. Not because they're playing games, but because their nervous system is trying to stabilize. This is how emotional misalignment escalates. One person seeks reassurance, the other seeks space, and both interpret the other as unsafe in different ways. Resolution plus reflection. So what does this actually mean? Going cold after intimacy is rarely a single-story behavior. It can come from emotional overwhelm attachment patterns, fear of vulnerability, or identity recalibration after closeness. But the key point is this: it is not always a reflection of your value. Sometimes it's a reflection of someone's capacity to handle emotional closeness in real time. And understanding that changes how you respond. Instead of chasing clarity from someone who is retreating, the healthier shift is asking, is this person emotionally consistent with what I need? Because intimacy doesn't just reveal connection, it reveals capacity. If this helped you understand this pattern differently, leave a comment with one word: clarity. And if you've ever been on either side of this experience, someone going cold or someone being left confused, share your experience. Not for validation, but because these patterns only lose power when they're understood out loud. And if you want more breakdowns of hidden emotional behaviors like this, subscribe, because what people show on the surface is rarely the full story.